to another episode, our Easter episode of Feeding Our Faith. With me today, I've got a very illustrious group of our adults who are going to help us make some deviled eggs. Some people were trying to say that they should be instead angel eggs, but we're going to keep them as deviled eggs. But in order for you all to know who we're cooking with, I wonder if you all will each introduce yourselves as we're starting here.
I'm Jacob Sapienza.
I'm Veronica Sanchez.
Kristen Kratky.
Father Jeff. Now, we're going to make two different kinds of deviled eggs. The first one, which we're going to get started on, is going to be a truffle deviled egg with candy cayenne bacon. Now, somebody asked the idea, they said, okay, why deviled eggs at Easter time? Why are we doing that? Well, a few things. One is because always in my house growing up, it always seemed like we had, we'd have eggs, in our Easter baskets and that sort of thing, but it always seemed like we were trying to figure out what we're going to be doing with all these boiled eggs that the Easter Bunny brought us. And so my mom would oftentimes make deviled eggs, which I love deviled eggs. Deviled eggs are a great thing for potlucks and picnics and everything else. But what I'm doing here first to candy the bacon is I'm taking a little bit of brown sugar and putting it on top. Doesn't need a whole lot. You're just kind of sprinkling it on top of the bacon like this. And the reason we're starting off with the bacon is because we want to make sure that we have plenty of time in order to be able to candy it. And it's going to take a little bit in order to be able to do that. Now, do you all like deviled eggs?
No.
Yes.
No?
I'm not.
I do.
Okay, so Jacob can help me test them, but Veronica and Kristen, I guess y'all are...
I'll just watch.
Yeah.
You can help me make them. Okay.
We'll just put the love in there.
Okay.
There we go.
I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
So we've got this brown sugar pretty well evenly over the pieces of bacon. Now, next thing is we're going to put some of the cayenne pepper. Now, I wonder if one of y'all will be willing to sprinkle it on there for me.
I will. Do you tell me when, or do I just go
Just go for it. You don't need to do it real heavy.
on all of them, or just
Yes, ma'am,
where?
all of them.
Okay, cool.
Looking good, looking good. You don't want to do a whole lot of cayenne pepper. You can do quite a bit if you want, but you don't want to do a whole heap and helping of it. Just want enough so it has a little bit of spice in there. All right, perfect. Now we can hand this down the line. Jacob, I wonder if you would put it in that top oven for us. We have the oven at 375 degrees right now, and it'll take a little bit to cook the bacon, okay? Now the next thing we will do is we're going to start with the eggs. Now, we need to cut the eggs in half, which real easy to do.
Just cut them in half.
Yes, we'll do it
By the way?
lengthwise.
Okay.
There we go. We'll cut them in half lengthwise. And now what we're going to want to do is we're going to cut 10 of them and put the yolks in one bowl, and then we'll do the other 10 and put the yolks in the other bowl. Because we're going to make kind of a traditional style deviled egg with, kind of the pickles and such. Actually, the pickles we're going to be using will be, I'm going to be using dill pickle relish. You can use sweet pickle relish, but I never was a huge fan of sweet pickle relish. More of a dill pickle kind of a guy, so on my deviled eggs I always end up putting the dill pickle relish in it. Now, today's topic that we're going to be talking about is this idea that we all know here during Easter we celebrate the passion, death, and resurrection of Christ. Now, a lot of times we can have a tendency to focus in on one aspect of those 3 days of Holy Thursday, Good Friday, and Holy Saturday and Easter time. We sometimes will focus in on one day over the other, but really it's an entire big celebration. Now, from what y'all can remember of celebrating Good Friday and Holy Thursday and Easter Vigil, which one's your favorite one? Or have you been to Good Friday?
Easter Vigil, probably.
Easter Vigil?
Okay. Easter
Okay.
Vigil.
Why do you like the Easter Vigil?
It's different. It's not something that...
It's longer, but it gives you this nice feeling, like when you leave and everything. You feel, I don't know, just lighter, I guess, after you leave.
Okay. Well, let's see, we'll need to put the yolks in there.
So you can go ahead and take them out.
So yeah, go ahead and start putting them in. Y'all can help Veronica in doing it. I can see the Easter Vigil is a wonderful celebration. It's all focused in on the idea of resurrection, but we also need the other parts. We need the Holy Thursday. We need Good Friday. We have a lot that's going on in there. Okay, so y'all are putting those in and looking good. Yeah, you can just kind of pop them out of there. Now for boiling eggs, for the deviled eggs, one of the things which you might consider doing, and there's people have different techniques of how it is that they will boil eggs. One of the ways I found that seems to work real well is I'll put my eggs into the water and then I'll bring it up to a boil. I'll let it boil for about 5 to 7 minutes, and then I will cut the heat off, leave it covered, and let it set for 10 to 15 minutes. And for me, that seems to have that gives it enough time for the yolks to cook and become solid, but then also it becomes very much easier to remove the shells. Right, so you've got those in. All right, very good. Now, I'll tell you what, Jacob, if you would mind maybe beginning to kind of assemble or put those the whites on one of those white sheets. Deviled eggs are not the healthiest thing in the world, but they taste really good.
Yeah.
Or at least Jacob and I think they taste really good. You ladies perhaps don't. But we put in there about a tablespoon of mustard, and then we will begin to put in some mayonnaise. Okay. Now what we will do next is we begin to mash everything together. Okay.
Like if you put like elbow grease in it.
Mm-hmm. You want to try?
Oh, okay, Kristen.
Looking good. Keep mashing. Now what I'll do is I'll stick a big good heaping spoonful of the pickle relish in there, and we'll just keep on mashing it. And you can add more to taste if you want to have a little bit extra. I always like a little bit more in there. Now what goes well in there is to be able to add a little bit of salt and pepper. And so you don't need much because the pickles add quite a bit of salt. But a little bit of the pepper, there we go. And that goes real well, looking good. You want to try and get the mixture as creamy as possible. So you need to do kind of a lot of mashing and stirring. It may take a little bit. And sometimes you may have to, tag off to a friend nearby you. Well, one of the things which you'll have this question very commonly here in the South, where we have a lot of non-Catholic religions that are very much wanting to ask, and they'll say, are you saved? And how do you know that you're saved? Well, as Catholics, we can easily say, yes, we have been saved through the passion, death, and resurrection of Christ. We can say that we are being saved. St. Paul talks about it, that our salvation is something which is ongoing, and we will be saved. So the idea that there is that future being saved. If you really want to confuse people, you can say, well, yes, I have been saved, I am being saved, and I will be saved. And they'll just sort of look at you quizzically.
I'm gonna try that then.
You can do that.
Okay, duly noted.
Let's see, so how are we doing over there? How's it looking?
I think it looks pretty good.
Okay. Sometimes what you'll want to do is you want to give it a little bit of taste and see kind of how we're doing. Not bad. Okay, now the next thing we do as we're cooking this is as we're making the deviled eggs, is we've got to fill the eggs with this mixture. Okay? Now in order to be able to do that, you want to split them equally between, and so it's a little bit tricky as you're trying to make sure you're using equal amounts between all of them. You just kind of want to take a little bit like that and just put it in there. You sometimes have to grab the egg by the sides, and there you go. You want to give it a try?
I think it's pretty easy.
Yeah, it's not too bad. While you're doing that, I will check on the bacon. We'll be using a little bit of the smoked paprika, which we'll sprinkle on top. And what you'll do is just kind of take a little bit like that and just kind of sprinkle a little bit on top. That gives a little bit of color to the deviled eggs. And the smoked paprika adds a little bit of an interesting kick to it. So I'll tell you what, if one of y'all...
You do that one, Jake.
Alright, I got this.
You got them all filled?
Yep. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Yes, we can add a little bit more to some of these. There we go. Don't want to be stingy on the filling. We got plenty of it. There we go. Now the truffle deviled eggs are a little bit different. These deviled eggs are going to be ones in which we have some mayonnaise. We're also going to use some white truffle oil. Now, white truffle oil is interesting. It is a very strong oil. It's a little bit pricey. A bottle like this will run you about $13. And you can usually only find it at specialty stores like Central Market or some of those. But it's a very strong oil, and so it's one of these things to where you don't need to add a whole lot. So a little bit goes a really long way. But it has a very distinct, very nice aroma to it. And so we will be adding that to the eggs to the yolks along with some mayonnaise. So, Veronica, I know you said you've been to Holy Thursday, but not Good Friday. What was something you remembered about Holy Thursday in particular?
It's gotta be washing of the feet.
Okay.
Where the Father does that.
Have you ever had your feet washed?
Like when I was younger.
Okay.
I have.
You have?
By you.
Ah. How'd I do?
It was alright. You missed some of the things.
Okay. Before we get back to the washing of the feet, we combine the egg yolks again with a little bit of the mayonnaise. Now, we're using less mayonnaise this time. Use a lot less mayonnaise because we're going to be adding in the truffle oil. And the truffle oil is going to help to kind of keep everything creamy as well. So, I'm going to add a little bit of the truffle oil. Alright, I wonder if you all would mix that up for me. Now, in order to pull this off, you really have to have the truffle oil. There's no way around it. Otherwise, it's not truffled eggs. It's truffle deviled eggs. Now, on Holy Thursday, we've got the washing of the feet. But we also have something else that happens. Does anybody know?
Are we still talking about Thursday?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay.
I can't think of anything.
Okay. Okay. We have the institution of the Eucharist. Okay. So this is always an important time for us, an important celebration. Looks like we may need a little more mayonnaise in there.
It's not mushy enough.
Yeah. There we go. A little more truffle oil. There you go. So we have the institution of the Eucharist, which this is always an important celebration for us. We celebrate the institution of the Eucharist at Holy Thursday, and then as we move into Good Friday, which Jacob, you've been to Good Friday, but Friday and Christmas, y'all haven't been to Good
I
Friday.
have, just not at Holy Family.
Wow.
Okay, it's been a while. Okay, what do y'all remember about Good Friday?
Station of the Cross.
Station of the Cross.
That
We do
It's
that.
one of my favorites.
Yeah. What else?
Live stations of the cross.
Yeah, we do live stations. We do live stations across. We also will have a time which we have Adoration of the Cross, which we have a reading of the Passion, we have the Adoration of the Cross, and it's a very beautiful ceremony. If you've never been to it, it usually happens in the evening. It's something you really ought to check out, because it's a time for us to remember the importance of the cross and Christ's sacrifice for us. Now, as we get to that, it comes time to go ahead and put those in the eggs. So, let's see, we'll get all the good stuff off. Bacon should be getting close to done. Now, as we head through the Triduum, we get to the celebration at the Easter Vigil. Easter Vigil, we of course have Easter Sunday, which we celebrate the resurrection of the Lord. Besides my favorite part, which is sprinkling everybody with holy water, what else do you remember about the Easter Vigil?
Long.
Yeah,
It's long.
that's for sure.
Well, the Easter Vigil itself, it's a neat celebration because it is a time in which we celebrate, we welcome in the newly baptized, those who are catechumens and the candidates come into the church. It's a time for us to celebrate our faith. All of the readings talk about the entire story of our salvation. They tell the salvation story all the way from the Old Testament through. And it's a beautiful celebration. There we go, looking good. Well, at this point, we've taken the candied cayenne bacon actually out of the oven. And you want to let it cool a little bit because it'll be hot as all get out. Plus, what will happen is it's still going to be a little bit flexible. But what you can do is you let it sit for a little bit, and the candy will begin to kind of the sugar will begin to harden a little bit, and the bacon will become to where you can have it a little bit stiff like this. And you can take a small piece off, you tear it off, and you put it in the egg such as this. And we will just kind of decorate all of them like that.
Jake, you want to do that?
Yeah.
The Easter Vigil itself, which we're kind of talking a little bit, is a time in which we not only celebrate this welcoming of everybody into the church, but we celebrate the resurrection of Christ, new life, all of those sorts of things like that. It's a really neat celebration if you haven't had the chance to go to it. There we go. Looking good. All right. So we have deviled eggs two ways, and we have one with the truffle deviled eggs with candied cayenne bacon, and one a little bit more of a standard deviled egg with a healthy dose of paprika. And we'll have these recipes online and available for you. But as you celebrate the Easter season, don't forget the idea of the importance of what it is that we celebrate. And it's more than just Easter Bunny, it's more than just deviled eggs, although I love deviled eggs.
Okay.
But it truly is a time to celebrate the passion, death, and resurrection of Jesus. Now, in the upcoming potluck, we're going to expand a lot more on what that celebration means. We'll talk about the idea of salvation and how we answer that question to those who pose the question to us of, so brother, are you saved? And so we will be doing all of that in the potluck, and so hopefully y'all will be able to come to it and join us there. And if you'd like to bring deviled eggs, you can, or if you want to bring another dish, that's fine too. Y'all can bring deviled eggs even though you don't like them.
I'll just make them with love.
Thank you. I
We can
appreciate
You're
it.
welcome.
And then you and
Paul.
I'll eat it. All right, that sounds good. All right. Well, thank you very much, and we hope to see you at the potluck.